Manx Radio Sport.
A very good evening and welcome once again to Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio. I'm Rob Pritchard, here with you until 6:30pm. Hope you had a wonderful TT fortnight and a wonderful week so far. And coming up this evening, with the 2023 Parish Walk just around the corner, we delve into the preparations and build-up for Manx athletics competitors over the coming weeks. It's the big finale to the Isle of Man darts season in the west of the island this weekend. We take a look at what's to come and also how changes to the darts season this year have been received. And with just a few weeks to go until the Isle of Man heads to Guernsey for the 2023 Island Games, we hear from two of the sports taking part about their ambitions. That is all to come this evening. Well, before we dive into things this evening, just some updates regarding one of the Manx golfers, and it concerns Anna Dawson out on the Amundi German Masters, which is part of the Ladies European Tour. We reported a few minutes ago that she was due to miss the cut for the next round of the competition, but since then there has been an update and the projected cut has changed, and currently Anna Dawson is now one shot within that projected cut, with play just about coming towards the end now. So as it stands, Anna Dawson, with that update, could very well be heading for the next round of that competition. So all the best to Anna Dawson out there. Okay, moving into tonight's schedule. The Manx athletics scene has resumed its frantic pace again this week after a brief pause during the TT fortnight. The events across the island are coming thick and fast, with athletes making their final preparations for some of the major competitions to come, such as next week's 2023 Parish Walk and the Island Games in Guernsey at the start of next month. There was also some great news this week for a local competitor who will compete on the world stage later this year. I caught up with athletics correspondent Dave Griffiths to find out about the preparations across the board for the Island Games and, of course, the Parish Walk next Saturday.
Well, I think the first thing to say really is that the way that the weather's been over the last 3, 4 or 5 weeks or whatever, we've just had this incredible run of warm, in fact, I would say hot sunshine. So if we get these sort of conditions on the day, I would think that the majority of the competitors should be quite well acclimatised to it now. Quite often, you will get a hot day on Parish Day. And if you haven't had those conditions in the lead up, it can be a real problem, because you're not, the body isn't acclimatised to those conditions. That shouldn't be a problem this year, hopefully, at least for those who are well prepared anyway. So obviously if the weather is cooler on the day, then that'll be a bonus as well. But yeah, it's a really exciting time of the year. I think there's something like 1,250 entrants, roughly 1,253, which is quite good. I think it's up on last year. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Looking at some of the competitors we would expect to be there, who are the ones to keep an eye on this time, as far as you're aware at this point?
Yeah, well, Paul Atherton, of course, has won the last two parish walks in 21 and 22, and he's entered again this year. So clearly, he'll be aiming for a hat trick, and I think. I don't know. Paul is he's an extremely good endurance athlete. He's not just a walker. He's a very good runner, marathon runner as well. And the one thing about Paul is that he'll be well prepared and he's very experienced. So I think he probably will be the man to beat. But there's plenty of others who are sort of coming up behind him and who are improving all the time. I think Dean Morgan is certainly one who has been really consistent over the last couple of years. Simon Gorn is a little bit younger than those guys, and he's been improving all the time. In recent times as well. You've got the likes of James Quirk, Josh Knight, and quite a few others as well. There's bound to be others on the day who, maybe we don't really expect in advance will be among the leaders who will be right up there. That always happens. And then I think it's a similar story in the women's race, because we've got Sammy Bowden, who I think has won the last two as well, and she's also on the entry list. Not sure how her preparations are this year, but she's a very strong endurance athlete. You've got the likes of Lorna Gleave, who's returning after a year out. There's people like Amy Sykes, Louise Jimson, Chloe Spooner, and an interesting entrant in the women's race is Nikki Arthur, who's another formidable endurance athlete, who, although she's not a specialist walker, she's bound to be right up there as well. So, there's plenty of contenders, I think.
Let's just have a look at another Manx athlete who's made the headlines. Long-distance runner Sarah Webster has had a great 2023 so far, and it's just got even better as well, because this week she's been selected to represent Great Britain at the 50-kilometre World Championships in India in November. How good is that?
Yeah, that news, it's not surprise news, but it's fantastic news for all that. Sarah achieved the qualifying time to represent Great Britain in that event. It's the World Ultra Running Championships. So, yeah, like you say, she's doing the 50-kilometre race. Now, Sarah had to achieve a qualifying time in a 50k race, which meant that she, quite just recently, actually, she had to go to a race in Romania in which she achieved the qualifying standard. So it's another honour for an outstanding endurance athlete, which means that over the past year or so and into November this year, she's competed in the Commonwealth Games. She's competed in the British and Irish plate 100-kilometre race in Ireland, in which she set a British record for that time. She's won the 50k race recently in Romania. She's got the Island Games half marathon coming up as well, and then she's got this 50k race, the World Championship race in India in November. It's just an incredible series of achievements, and it goes on. And good luck to her.
The countdown is well and truly underway for the Island Games in Guernsey, the 8th to the 14th of July. From those you've spoken to in the athletics community, how's everyone feeling of those who are taking part?
I think there's a lot of excitement. I mean, the Isle of Man team, they've picked quite a big athletics team this year. There's 33 athletes who are certainly named in the selection, and out of those I've done a quick tot up, and 20 of them are debutants, and obviously that's a little bit higher than usual, but that's explained by the fact that we've had an extra 2-year gap since the last games. So I think it'll be a similar story for a lot of the other islands. A lot of inexperience, but I think there's that's balanced by the fact that we have got 4 of our Commonwealth Games athletes who obviously are Island Games veterans, you could almost call them, who will very much be leading the way. So that's Sarah Webster, who we've just talked about, Ollie Lockley, Rachel Franklin, and javelin thrower Joe Harris. So I think there'll be quite a bit of onus on them to provide experience and advice to some of the younger athletes. But certainly in the events I've been to, just as we speak, I was at the Isle of Man Track and Field League. A lot of the young athletes are really improving rapidly this year. And obviously just the inspiration of having the Island Games to look forward to. Every time the Island Games comes round, this happens, where you get athletes sort of achieving standards that they probably didn't realise that they were capable of, and that will continue into the Games. And there will be some of them who, again, will achieve standards that they probably didn't believe that they could do, just from having the inspiration of being in a quality field and wearing that Isle of Man vest. So it's a really exciting time for them.
This Saturday sees the grand finale to the Isle of Man darts season out in the west of the island. The 2023 Isle of Man National Darts Championships will be held at the Peel Legion on Saturday afternoon. The sport underwent a restructure this season, aiming to encourage more people to get involved. Alan Young is the secretary of the Isle of Man Darts organisation. He explains how well the changes have worked and what we might be able to expect this weekend.
It's open to any Isle of Man resident. Everyone's welcome. You don't have to be the world's greatest dart player to get involved. It's £10 entry. We've got men's singles, ladies singles, and then we've got 3 pairs events, men's, ladies, and mixed. So there's lots going on. If you don't think you're the best player in the world, you can team up with somebody else and sort of have a bit of fun. It's all just to try and get as many people involved as possible, really.
Now, with this being the season finale, looking back maybe over the last couple of months, how has everything run this year? We've, of course, had the regular leagues. We've had the Super League back in April. Yeah. How's everything been so far? Yeah,
so we mixed it up this year. We abandoned our old ranking system and went with a Super League, which has been a massive success. It's been, it's gone better than I think than even ourselves had hoped. And we've got probably twice as many people playing in these events than would have played in the rankings in previous years. People from all over the island, whereas before, the majority of people that took part in the rankings were probably sort of Douglas-based. So we're seeing a few new faces that we weren't aware of that are capable of doing really good things. So it's been a good season. We had our Masters, so we have 2 big events in the years. We have the Masters sort of halfway through the season, and then we have the Island Championships at the end. So the Masters was held up in Ramsey at the Buffs Club. It was a big success as well. We had a good turnout. We had Robbie Nelson won the final, and Sarah Taylor was the ladies champion. So 2 of the very best sort of players the island has to offer there, and probably 2 of the favourites going into Saturday as well.
And like you mentioned with the ranking system, those changes, and you say that it's been, I think in your words, you say it's more successful than you could have hoped for, really. The fact that, like you say, you're starting to see other players from different regions across the island, it's giving them encouragement that, they can be pushing towards, bigger things in the game. That must be really positive from your perspective as an organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our 2 goals are really to put the best team we can out for international events and to get as many people playing as possible. And the Super League has helped towards both of those goals. The Super League in particular, I think a lot of players didn't go to ranking events because they maybe thought they're not the very best players around. And whereas the Super League, where you're part of the team, there's a lot of camaraderie there. It's built up really good team spirit amongst players, and I think it's certainly something to build on for next year.
Turning back to the National Championships then this weekend, in terms of the players we could expect to be involved, who might be some of those to keep an eye on?
Sort of the ladies, certainly Sarah's the reigning Island champion, Sarah Taylor, and Nat Masters champion. So, she'll be looking to defend her titles, and, she's got every chance of doing that. And the ladies, Margaret Kelly's been a dominant player in local darts for a good few years, and she'll be looking to get those titles back, I'm sure. So it's hard to see beyond those two, but we've got some excellent other ladies players, Wendy Andrews, Nikki Bardsley, some good young players like Sophie Hicklin, Jess Corlett, Vicky Cannon. So there's a good, strong group of players there. For the men's, we've got Wayne Harrison's the reigning champion. He's won the title 4 or 5 times, so he's certainly going to be thereabouts. Robbie Nelson, who we've already mentioned. Kevin Lane, who together with Robbie, they play on the PDC Challenger Tour. So they're the closest thing to professionals we have on the island. They're both very, very good, and they'll be hard to beat. But you've got some of the top players that have been around for a long time: Colin Tyre, Paul Certain, Paul Kelly. Even Paul's coming back from an injury, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. I feel I've got some great players: Peter Sale, Willie Began, and Chris Gilbert, who's been in the Super League this year, who's done really, really well. So there's quite a group of players there that could give it a go, I think. The men's, there's probably 12, 15 players that'll be turning up thinking they can win it.
Looking beyond the championships, I suppose, towards next season almost, do you think things are looking pretty positive for numbers to keep things up going into the next season?
Yeah, certainly numbers are looking good. The big thing we have coming up next year is a competition called the Islands International, which was held in Guernsey for the first time this year. We're going to be the hosts in January 2024. It's going to be held at the Empress Hotel at the end of January, so that's a massive event for us. We'll be hosting teams from Guernsey, Jersey, and the Republic of Ireland, and so that's going to be a big focus for us.
The countdown is now underway for the 2023 Island Games in Guernsey. It's been 4 years since the last Island Games were held in Gibraltar. With just a few weeks to go, we've been catching up with the sports the Isle of Man will be involved in when the Games start on the 8th of July. And starting things off in that regard is the Isle of Man team, which was first to publicly announce its squad, table tennis. I spoke to their manager, Maggie Mulhern.
It's great, really, because at one point we thought we'd never see them again after COVID. It really sort of mucked everything up for everybody, and everything was getting put back again. So no, it's really great that Guernsey have decided to hold them. They should have held them in 2021. So it was, they might hold them, they might not, but no, they've gone ahead, so it's great. We're all looking forward to get down to Guernsey.
And not just from an Isle of Man preparation perspective, but you mentioned Guernsey there. They've had to jiggle around all sorts of things around the pandemic, and it's still going ahead, if not a little bit late. So how much commendation do you have to give for the organisers to be able to put it back on again after all these different barriers they've had to put up with?
Well, talking about the table tennis coordinator, Derek Webby as he's known, he's had it in place since probably 2020 COVID. I know the tables have been in place down there, all wrapped up, ready to go. So from his point of view, it was probably quite easy just to get up and running again. Other sports, I'm not quite sure how they've got on. But table tennis is up and running.
Let's get to table tennis then. So Team Isle of Man, there's going to be 8 players, 4 male and 4 female. And if I'm right in saying table tennis was the first to announce as well, was there a particular strategy behind that in terms of we're going to announce early, or did it just fall into place that you could?
As team manager and coach, I like to get my team in place as quickly as possible. I think it benefits the players to know that they're definitely being selected. We can then put practice and training sessions into place. It's just easier for me to actually have my team in place, and I say everybody knows that they're going from an early date.
The fact that you are able to announce and want to announce as early as you can, and how does that help your preparations? Because I'm guessing that must mean you've got months of time behind you to work around, not just your schedule of getting things together, but also the athletes taking part.
Yeah, I think the players need to know as early as possible as well. It gives them a chance to get off island, do some attend some Grand Prix, do some training sessions, and doubles in table tennis, the men's and ladies and the mixed doubles, the pairings are quite crucial. You can pick up points here and there in the team event, so to actually get players who wouldn't normally play together as a doubles pairing practicing as soon as possible, it can only be good for them.
Does that present any particular challenges? Because if you've got players who are very good individually, for example, and like you say, you don't know the pairings until they're actually put together, so you've got athletes on and off island. So has it had any challenges at all for you?
Not really, because I see most of the players week in, week out. I organise tournaments, so I know how they get on in tournaments and that, and who they play doubles with. So for me, it's probably easier to actually mix or match the pairings up. Sometimes it can be a bit harder. Not all, just because you're a good table tennis player in singles doesn't mean that you're a good doubles table tennis player. But luckily, all mine can mix and match in whatever I ask them to do.
For those who don't know, I guess, maybe like your table tennis in and out like you do, what are the key qualities that you need in doubles compared to, say, being a good singles player?
Being able to communicate with your partner, being able to move, which is quite good because in table tennis, in the doubles, you play alternate shots. So if you're receiving serve, you have to get out of the way so your partner can then hit the next shot. So a bit of flexibility, movement, I say, but just being able to gel with your partner. If you play with someone for a long time, you just get to know where they're going to move and what sort of shots they're going to put in. So I say the more practice we can get for the people who don't normally play together, the best it is, I say, for them.
What are you hoping to achieve out there? Because some sports might say, we want X amount of medals, we want to get X amount of games for this player and that player. What are you hoping?
Basically, I'm hoping that everyone has a good time and enjoy themselves. If we come back with medals, that's a bonus. We'd like to build on what we did in Gibraltar. We did come back with 2 bronze medals. Kay Venus picked up 1 in the ladies' singles and then teamed up with Corenza Bacon. They picked up 1 in the ladies' doubles. So it'd be nice to come back with some more medals. It's not the be-all and end-all of why we're going, but yeah, it would be the icing on the cake if we could come back with some medals.
And that is Maggie Mulhern, the team manager for the Isle of Man table tennis team heading out to Guernsey this summer. Well, finally this evening we'll turn to another Island Games sport, and that is the well-established game of archery. 9 players will fly the Manx flag in the sport at the Games, and one of the players involved this year is Rhys. I caught up with him to find out how preparations have been going for the whole squad.
It's going really well, actually. We've had a couple of coaches over from the UK, so the weather fortunately held. We had the team together and we got some really good training in and preparation. As you said, it's all downhill run as such to the Games now, so we're all quite excited.
Like you say, you brought a couple of coaches across, so what have they been able to bring in that maybe, say, you don't necessarily have on a week-to-week basis here to help you push on in the Games?
The advantage is obviously just getting some new eyes to the situation. We've got some very experienced archers here. They can provide some excellent coaching and look out and help, but sometimes just getting that external set of eyes and knowledge of the equipment. One of the guys we had over, he runs his own archery shop, so it helps from that point of view. He's up to speed with where the equipment's up to, where it should be up to. So just give the one over of the equipment and then another one of the archers themselves, and just a few pointers here and there that sometimes you can come a bit blind to.
Now, there are 2 different disciplines that the Isle of Man's going to be competing in the archery side of things. Just for those who don't know, could you just explain what they are? Not going to ask you to go into loads of details. If you could just explain what they are.
Sure. So there's going to be two teams. There's the recurve team and the compound team. They're 2 different disciplines off bow style. The recurve is what they shoot at the Olympics. People probably aren't so familiar with the compound side of things. They do shoot the compound at the Paralympics, so people have possibly seen that on the TV. Probably the best way to describe it is imagine having 2 different styles of bike. It's probably the same sort of idea. The principle's the same off the pair of them, but one's maybe designed for the road and then another one's for another function. It's probably the best way to describe it. And
you sort of alluded to it with the word a couple of moments ago in terms of both teams. You mentioned like experience as well. It seems like quite a tight-knit group you've got here. Having that experience, that must be quite valuable going into an international competition, basically. Oh yeah, massively. We're quite fortunate. We've got some archers that have been shooting for a very long time at likes the Island Games and stuff, going back to the 90s and stuff. But then we've also taken some archers. This will be their first Games, so it's quite a broad depth of knowledge and experience. This will be my second Games, for example, but we've had some archers that have been to 10 or 12 Games. Quite a few of the sports are going for that mix of, I suppose, maybe youth, if you want to call it, or those doing it for the first time, and experience. You seem to have a lot of people who know a lot about the Games. Do you think that gives you a bit of an advantage as a group? I think it always helps. It kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off in some ways. You've been before, you kind of know your way around. As you said, we've got people who've been before, and you get that all across a lot of the other islands, which makes it quite nice because you get to catch up with people you haven't seen in a while. So it is a bit of a friendly Games. Everybody gets to know each other after a while, so it kind of takes that pressure away if you can go and you know a few faces and you get used to chatting to a few people. It's not quite so daunting, I don't think, and it's trying to feed that across the group so everybody feels comfortable when they're there. You brought up a phrase there that quite a few people have said it's effectively like a friendly Games, really. Yes, of course, there's competition out there, but there seems to be like a really good connection between the different island nations. It only comes around once every 2 years, or 4 years in fact, because obviously 2019 Gibraltar. So do you think that really is what makes the Island Games quite special, do you think? Yeah, massively. I think it's quite nice that you get people
I think we were chatting a little bit about this before, but realistically, the Island Games is the highest level that most people will get to go to, because after that, what is it next? The Commonwealth Games, and you've got to be training a lot and be really at the top of your games to go to the likes of the Commonwealth Games. There's only a handful of people ever go, whereas I think the Island Games is quite nice in terms of there's a lot of people that do sport, probably they're competitive, but they won't be travelling a lot the way to the UK every weekend. They won't be high level competitiveness where they can go to the Island Games and shoot at a competitive level, but they're kind of just normal people, if that makes sense, versus people that, their life gets to the stage they're built around training for that sport.
With yourselves compared to, say, someone who would be competing in the Commonwealth Games for whichever nation, you've got to be training week in, week out if you're doing that. So for the likes of yourselves to build yourself up to an international competition, what's the key here? Is it just getting the minutes in, just getting the shots in, or is there anything else to add?
Realistically, there's no substitute for time behind the bow. Kind of this time of year now, in the run down to the games, we'll be shooting 3 times a week. We're down here on Tuesday night, Thursday night, and then all day on a Sunday. So it's just time behind the bow and just being comfortable with the equipment and making sure everything's set up right and you're comfortable with your shot and stuff, and then just shooting in different weather conditions, because unfortunately at the end of the day we are going to the Island Games and we're not renowned for our favourable weather, are we? In some shape or capacity, and generally unless the weather's particularly bad, we'll shoot in all sorts of conditions, so whether it be wet, windy or glorious sunshine.
We hear a lot about the likes of, say, some of the big team sports like football, rugby, hockey all the time here on the Isle of Man. Archery's been here and very well established for quite some time. So in terms of, I suppose, like a bit of a sporting community, as it were, what's it like from your side of things?
Oh, it's a really nice small. It's probably what can be classified as a minority sport. We've got quite a lot of minority sports over here, but as you said, we've been around for a long time. But people don't necessarily. You'll say, "Oh, I do archery," and they go, "Oh, I didn't realise we had archery in the Isle of Man." You get that quite a lot, which I think is a shame, because we do beginners courses every year, and we're always welcoming people to come down and have a go. But yeah, I think people traditionally end up in the bigger sports because they're more seen. But likes the club down here, we're a really nice, tight-knit group. It is a really friendly group, but because it is so small, everybody gets to know everybody gets to chat to everybody, and I think that's what makes part of the enjoyable part of it.
What would the Isle of Man archery team class as success, do you think, in Guernsey?
Not to get wet, probably be a start. But I mean, we've got a good track record of getting medals at games. We've not to big ourselves up and to touch wood here and there, but we've always been pretty lucky or pretty good to pick up a medal here and there. So I think that's probably the aim again, is to try and get a couple to come home with.
Well, that's all we have time for on Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio this week. Many thanks to our guests who have featured this week, and they are Dave Griffiths, Rhys Moore, Maggie Mulhern and Alan Young. Moving on, have yourself a wonderful Friday evening and have a wonderful weekend as well. Chris Kinley is here with you next, but from me, until next time, it's bye for now.
Manx Radio.